welcome to this yet another beautiful episode of She Cites Personality Interview. And today it's a cover personality interview. And I am so delighted and fascinated and excited and whatnot to interview this amazing powerhouse woman with me today. To introduce her, she is a multifaceted personality. She, of course, is a go-to person when it comes to marketing, PR, as well as branding for various big corporates. She has a lot of experience working for big companies in the US. But what makes her today featured in Sheside is her initiative towards diversity, equity, inclusion, plus the network of women that she is trying to build across the globe through her initiative, Ella. So I want to know more about Ella, as well as all her life, as well as career achievements so far. And I bet this is going to be super interesting, super exciting, and inspiring for all the women out there. She's none other than Erin Gallagher. And Erin is, she has recently become the top 100 LinkedIn creator, and she is Fast Company's World Most Innovative recipient for 2022. She is also, as I said, the founder of Ella. She has also won an award called Top Women in PR by PR News in 2019. Oh my God. So there's a lot of awards and achievements that she has got. But what is inspiring, or what made me excited about her, is her initiative with women, and how I met her last few weeks back at San Francisco, and the kind of women network that she is building is really fascinating. So let's get to all of that. So I'll start off this cute conversation, interesting conversation, with just a very basic question, Erin, which is, how did it all begin?
Oh, that's a big question to start things off with. It all began in, well, Long Beach, California, where I was born. No, how did it all begin? I think that so much of my professional life has been centered around showing up in places that had a very specific way of working that I didn't always agree with, understand, or want to participate in. And so I've always been someone that has asked questions about why we're doing something a certain way, been sort of a disruptor in those instances, in those spaces. And truly, it was always with the intention of making wherever I was more inclusive, more diverse, a place where more people could show up as themselves. So, my most recent endeavor, as you mentioned, Ella, really came from 20 years of my work experience working inside of systems, trying to change them, right? 15 years in agencies, working on systems, trying to change them. At the last company that I founded, spent 2.5 years working with some of the biggest brands and companies like McDonald's and LinkedIn and Carhartt and United Airlines. And now just really feeling that working in the system and working on the system was not moving things forward as fast as I wished progress would be made. And it wasn't where I felt I could have the most impact. And so new system, third way. And that's what we're doing at Ella.
I know I asked a very loaded question and you gave a very simple answer. 20 years of experience working in a male-dominated environment automatically makes you come out with this kind of an initiative. Very simple. Right. Now, coming to your formation years, maybe we could go back a little more behind. What about your childhood? And are there any specific instances where you felt that girls, where did you grow up? And would you like to share this?
So my mom was in the military. She was in the Coast Guard for 25 years. So we moved every 2 to 4 years my entire life. And that in and of itself was formative, because it meant that I was constantly coming into situations where I was unknown. I was a new person. I had to navigate an environment that I wasn't used to. It helped me a lot with being social and really, understanding how to connect with people. It also made me very hypervigilant, which is a a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
I really learned quite quickly how to read a room and how to read people's said and unsaid communication. And that, that helps when you're trying to understand where to meet someone, how to connect with them, where to push, where to pause. But it also can be a really exhausting trait to have, because it means that you are really spending a lot of energy navigating your space. So I did that for, all the way up until going to college, which was like the last time that I was going into a new place that wasn't my choice. From then on, I was now in the work world, and where I was moving and where I was going was based on my own career and not being the dependent of a parent who was moving. And I think that it also just showed me I had a very diverse experience growing up, because I lived in lots of different places. I lived in Hawaii, I lived in Washington, D.C., I lived in New Orleans, I lived in New Jersey and Michigan and California. And so just always in very diverse environments, that meant that I grew up knowing that people who looked different, had different experiences and backgrounds, were just a part of life. It wasn't something that was new or novel.
Yeah.
And I think that it also showed me where there were a lot of disparities. And so it drove me to my first job out of college, when I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at Service Members Legal Defense Network, a nonprofit whose entire mission was to lift the ban on gays in the military. And so again, starting out with like really mission-driven work and trying to give voice to those that weren't able to speak out and up about what they deserved and needed in the world. And so really my professional life has come full circle after starting there and coming back to, again, the mission of women and focusing on this area that needs to be addressed, which is access to capital, human capital, financial capital, and building generational wealth.
That's fascinating. Your mom is a military person. Weren't you fascinated to join the military?
Not at all. It's funny.
So what was your career ambition as a child, and what did you become?
It's so interesting, because my career ambition as a child, probably like a little kid, was really more about, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be an architect. I was interested in like being creative and exploring, but also building. So there was always this creating aspect of what I wanted to do. But
now
when I got
companies.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's again using creative applications to just address really systemic issues. Like we have to be creative when we're doing that. Otherwise, we're going to end up with the same solutions that we've always had, which haven't gotten us far enough. And so tapping into that creativity and not thinking that creativity only sits with artists and musicians and some of those more traditional creative fields, but that creativity can exist in every single type of role and industry. So what was going to be tough for me when thinking about the military was how regimented it was, how there was such a very clear delineation,
rules and regulation, which
absolutely
creative
right?
People cannot handle.
There was no rule breaking in the military, right? You don't fall out of line. You don't step out. My entire work experience has been about me falling out of line, stepping out, challenging something. And so I would have been kicked out of the military at boot camp, right? Like, I don't think I would have made it through week one. They would say, because I'd be asking questions and they say, this is just the way that it is. And that has never been a satisfactory answer for me. No knock to the military. There has to be structure and consistency in order for them to do the job that they're doing. But what's interesting about my mom's particular role, I ended up doing something very similar to her. She was not on ships. She was a public affairs person. And so she was essentially doing PR for the Coast Guard. Her background is journalism. She, got her master's in journalism from USC. And so she was a storyteller. And again, a person that was always pushing. She was always asking questions and pushing about what was happening for women in the organization. She was the first woman in many of the roles that she went into, the first commanding officer of Base Honolulu. the first
Wow.
XO based Sandy Hook. So the first woman to do all of these things. And I've said this before, she was quite annoyed by that. Not because of her role in being the first, but that it had taken that long for there to be a woman in those roles. Yeah. And she told me that even though her father he was in the Coast Guard, we have a family of Coast Guard folks. She said the real reason she went into the military is because it was the only profession where women were paid the same as men.
Yeah. Oh.
And so like at that time, it was like her way of knowing that she was going to be treated equitably. And so I think like me going into PR, even though that wasn't my like original intent, and it's where I spent 15 years of my career, it's very similar to the fact that she was doing public affairs in the military. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, from a PR person, when was the turning point to become an entrepreneur? What actually, when did that entrepreneur bug bit you?
Yeah, I think a lot of women were bitten by a bug in 2018. We had someone take the office of the president that never deserved that role here in the United States. We saw that happening. We saw Me Too and Time's Up sort of taking hold. We had the Women's March. There were just all of these sort of convening instances and moments that made me sit up and say, what am I doing? I'm just a part of this system. I just kind of keep it moving. And it's not working. It's not working for me, and it's not working for so many. And so that is what that was the impetus for starting our own company in September of 2019. Okay. And we had been leading this as a mission at our PR agency to truly just bring women back into the workforce who had left due to discrimination, due to the inability to have flexibility and navigate different parts of their lives that they were changing into as they were growing up inside of an organization, or because they had been pushed out because they had spoken up about something. And so what started as a mission then became our full-time work. And we spent that energy and time trying to change corporate culture. And it's a big job, and there are a lot of people doing it, and it has incredible merit, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time because there are hundreds of years old institutions that truly are not held accountable for making major change in the area of diversity, inclusion, gender equity, intersectionality. It's seen as a added superlative versus a part of the business. And until we make it part of the business, it's going to continue.
In some cases, it is just a fashion. They do it just
Absolutely.
just
performative. It's performative.
Yeah. So, I mean, I 100% agree on the fact that there's a lot more works to be done. And what you have tried, or rather you have embarked on, is a big journey. And I wish you definitely all kinds of support, as all kinds of appreciation, and best of luck for that. Now, at the same time, I would, since you are new to entrepreneurship, relatively new, I would say, though you have a long experience of corporate, have you felt that moment of, oh my God, why the hell did I enter this? And how did you overcome that situations?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. Entrepreneurship is, in my experience, it finds you. It's not necessarily something that you are seeking out. There are a lot of people who know that they want to own their own company. That was not my intention. But I think there are times when there is a cause or a mission or an endeavor that you are so supremely passionate about that there is no way that you can't devote your time and energy to it. And that often means you have to go and do it yourself, because it doesn't exist in the way that you want it to exist, or it's not solving the problem that you're hoping to solve. So for me, I mean, launching my last company when my youngest was 7 months old and my oldest was 2.5, not an easy time to launch a company. It's never an easy time. 6 months into launching that company, global pandemic hits. So lots of challenges and headwinds fell on us. But I think if there's anyone that can navigate challenges, it's mothers. There's that phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, but I actually like to say mothers are the necessity of invention. I think that they find new ways and solutions to get things done. They have to do it every day in their own homes and communities, and they bring that to the work that they do, whether it's for a corporation or for themselves. And so I think I reached a point where I didn't want to devote any more of my time and energy to individuals or organizations that weren't aligned with my mission and what I felt needed to happen in the world. And so I turned 40 in March of this year, and that was when I resigned from my last company. And I got to a point where I made a decision to, no longer abandon myself in service to others. And I think that women are taught from a very young age to abandon ourselves in service.
Yeah.
And that our worth is based on our service. And it might be service in the home, it might be service in the community, it might be service in our career, but it's always about what are we going to sacrifice for something or someone else. And if we turned that inward and we instead demanded that we were able to not only take care of ourselves, but show up fully and nurture what we wanted in order to exist, I think we could just really swing the pendulum. So that was a lot of why I decided to start my own company where I was making the decisions.
Exactly. And I can vouch for it because I've gone through the same similar situation a few years back when I started the nonprofit, which I'm running in India. And all the initiatives, what we do, including SheSight, has a purpose to it. And there is a very interesting story to SheSight, how I launched SheSight. Basically, few years back when I launched my nonprofit, I had approached a lot of leading media houses in my country, in my state, for featuring an event which we were organizing. And the event, you should understand the concept of the event. The event is about helping women to come back to career. So basically, that was one of my core initiatives in the nonprofit. And it's about the meet that, and it was not, no such initiative has happened in the recent times, and definitely it deserved some kind of screen space or what do you call it, space in the media to inform to more people. However, most of the top medias denied putting my news or rather putting the events news because they found it, and in some cases it came as a small box column news without much details. So that led me thinking, oh my God, this is a very important thing that we are doing, and women's issues needs more feature. And then I realized also that many women, successful people, if you look at the media, only less than 10% of news are about women, or women's stories are very, very rarely spoken about. Of course, there are a lot of negative news, especially if a woman is involved in some kind of a scam or corruption, then you get full coverage. But when it comes to achievement,
we love to see women fail. We love to see women fail.
Yeah. But when it comes to women's achievements and recognizing them, it's very rare that leading media houses do that. Of late, probably top media houses are interested, but again, it is only a side column. So that's how SheSight was born. It is 100% women stories, women news, women success stories. And the team is also 100% women led, the entire reporter and writers team and everything. So there is always this feminist perspective that we try to bring in every article. Now that brings me to the question, you are one person where apart from me, in my LinkedIn as well as in my Facebook profile, I have given as feminist. You are another person who haven't used that word, intersectional feminist. It is generally considered as a little negative word to even say that you are a feminist. Now, tell me, why did you do that? And what is the advice that you want to give to others?
So I find so much of our experience and so much of our perspective is based on conditioning. So even what you just shared about where SheSight came from, the conditioning is we're not going to tell stories about women's success because, by the way, women should just be doing it because it's the right thing to do. And it's like what, they pay the passion tax for the work they're doing. And like, it's self-promotional for them to want to have all of these accolades and this recognition. That conversation doesn't happen when it comes to men. So when we think about that, it's conditioning, right? When you see a woman talking about herself and you have that first instinct of like, who does she think she is? We would never do that to a man.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, I'm so proud and glad that you created this. And this is where so much innovation comes from. It's that you decided, I'm going to stop trying to fit inside of a system that wasn't built by or for women and ask that the media recognizes us. We're going to create our own damn thing, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're seeing women doing. We are creating our own systems because that system is not built for us. It doesn't want us to be bigger than we are.
Yeah.
So that's the experience. So the idea of the word feminist, it's conditioning.
Yeah.
The negativity around that word, the man-hating association, that's all conditioning. And so I spend a lot of my time reclaiming words or instances or ways of being that have been taken from us because the world wants us to be smaller than we are. So to me, intersectional feminism is an acknowledgement that women, as 51% of the population, as half of the labor force, as 85% of consumer buying power, should be at the center of all the decisions that are being made. Exactly. And if we are not solving the biggest challenges of our life for women, particularly women of color, and most specifically for Black women who are the most historically excluded, then we are not solving it for the greater good. When we do that, when we do solve for that group, everyone benefits and everyone wins. And so I spend a lot of my time destigmatizing and helping to decondition people and help them rewire what they've been taught and told. And so that's why I have it right there front and center, because I want to be super clear about what I'm about. And for anyone that isn't ready for that perspective, they were warned.
I know.
Right?
Right. Yeah, I can get it so well because I've done the same. Right.
Yeah,
so
yes.
Now, intersectional feminism is something probably not many people are aware of. If you could explain that part for our viewers, it will be great.
Yes, absolutely. So as a white woman, I am inherently aware of the privilege that I have in this world, that is very different than women of color. And feminism for so long has been about white women, right? When we look at when voting rights in the US happened, it was like white women first, and they've been separating us and pitting us against one another for centuries, they being the patriarchy. And so we've spent so much time infighting, either generationally or racially or politically as women, instead of recognizing our commonalities and the power of us collectively coming together. Intersectional feminism is acknowledging and recognizing all the ways that women show up, that they are diverse, and that each of those additional diverse dimensions makes a lived experience incredibly different. We can't just say, oh, we're doing great in corporate. We've got 20% of the C-suite is women. It's like, how much of it is white women? It's mostly white women. Okay, so that's not a win. It's not a win.
Exactly.
And so we have to start to get more specific about the dimensions of diversity when we talk about feminism, because a straight white woman's lived experience is very different than a gay Black woman's, right? And so we have got to, we need to be more specific and more nuanced in also the way that we provide solutions to the challenges.
Exactly. Wonderful. So would you like to share maybe 5 tips for organizations who are thinking of making their organization more diverse? How can they do it?
Oh, just 5.
I know there are many, but maybe.
Yeah. 5 tips for organizations that are thinking about making their company more diverse. So first of all, do you have someone whose job is specifically devoted to the acknowledgement of diversity in your organization, the representation and the progress around it? And if you don't, then you need to have that person. And by the way, it is everyone's job, but unless you create a role that sits in the C-suite, that reports to the CEO in the same way that the CFO does, the CHRO, the CMO, right? The Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, they need to report to the CEO. It's a message that it sends about your commitment to diversity. So you have to start there.
Yeah.
You also have to budget for it in the same way that you do for these other business driving entities. Diversity is business driving. Like the fact that they being like, again, the world wants us to show the statistics on, well, what does it matter if you have diversity? Everyone knows if you have a diverse organization, if you have a diverse leadership team, you perform better. It's just like, it is a direct line to revenue, to performance, to retaining and recruiting. And so you have to have a person who's in charge of it. You need to have a budget that is reflective of your commitment. You need to be able to track your work in this space. And so what I have found to be one of the most effective ways to do it, and work that we did with Fortune 100 companies, tie diversity metrics to executive compensation. Okay. As soon as you tie that to someone's bottom line, they prioritize it very quickly and they take it seriously. And so how do you make sure that you are making this a part of people's performance reviews and the expectations that you have for them in the same way that you do revenue targets, business development, and consumer and client acquisitions? And so those are some of the most important things. And then it's also looking at inside of your organization, where does diversity sit? Because if you are let's say if you're a 20% diverse organization and everyone is in a junior role and there's no one in a position of power and influence, then it's truly not representative. And so you need to look across your entire organization and make sure that representation is there. And then the last thing I'll say, and I don't know if I'm at 5, is that when you've done all of those things, you have the role, you have the budget, you have the metrics and the ability, right, to process. The other thing that is so critically important is that you bring in external resources that help you see what's happening inside your organization. No one can, with full, even with the best of intentions, like people inside of an organization just can't see everything. You have blind spots that are inherent because you speak a different language inside of your company, especially if you've been there for a long time. You fill in blanks on things that aren't really there. So if you don't have someone that's external that can point out these things you're not seeing, you're not going to get better and you're not going to grow. And so I think it's just critical to have external resources that you utilize to take a look at what's happening with diversity inside your organization. And that can be in the form of, we can bring in people who are consulting to help you. You can have other organizations do their own research on what's happening inside your org. But we have to acknowledge that, you don't do surgery on yourself. You don't, clean your own teeth. There are specialists that you hire that help you to take care of yourself. The same thing needs to happen with respect to your own company and the acknowledgement that this is a specialist area.
Exactly. Now that's wonderful. I think this was a masterclass on on diversity. Thank you.
I'm like, honestly, put women in charge. Like the easy answer is put women and women of color in charge. Like, trust me, they will turn it around. They'll turn it around.
For sure. Now, that brings me back to Ella. I love your cap, what you're wearing. And
I forgot that we were going to be on video, but I'm glad we're granted.
Well, I love it. So, what is your vision about Ella? Where do you see this organization growing up to be in the future?
Yeah, my vision has been and continues to be about helping women build generational wealth. I want women to make more money. I want them to make more money inside of the organization where they currently exist, to take on a role for more money elsewhere, to start their own company and make their own money, whatever it looks like, whatever whatever your journey is in your career and your ability to have income, is I want women to have access to the resources and really the rooms that they haven't always been able to get into, the people that have the ability to change someone's life in terms of a connection or capital. It's always about access for me. So what I've seen when it comes to the lack of women, and particularly women of color in positions of power and influence, is that it has never been about ambition or ability or aspiration. It's always been about access. And so if we can acknowledge that, right, that's why we're not seeing women in those roles. It has nothing to do about whether or not they want to be, they can be, and they like have the desire to put in the work. It's because they just haven't even been a part of the consideration set. And so with Ella, we are trying to just acknowledge that. And again, like we talked about before, new system, new ecosystem that interfaces with the current system, but is done in a way that is right for us, that acknowledges who we are as women, acknowledges that women are not a monolith. And so it has to be incredibly personalized and specific and nuanced. And as you experienced at the fairway, you know, what we really are looking at with the idea of the fairway is that men have been doing business on the golf course for 300 years, right? Straight white men. They have been out there, right? They've been out there. They've been talking about investments. They've been giving each other backdoor access to job opportunities. They've been discussing money and have never had the stigma around it that we have. Yeah. And so
women are generally conditioned that money is bad or money is a crime. You know, that's another problem.
Right. It's an inappropriate thing to discuss, right? And then you think about what women talk about when they get together normally. We're both community and consensus builders. And so we are talking about what's going on in your personal life, like how can I help you? What are the challenges that you're solving? What's going on that you know, with your family? We would never talk about our salary or like what we're investing in. Like those aren't the conversations that we're having. And it's not because we aren't capable. It's because we've been conditioned to not talk about it. So with the fairway, the whole premise is that we are coming together to unlearn that, decondition and rewire ourselves to be wealth builders and to give each other access to that, truly that human capital and that financial capital and those opportunities. To not see each other as threats. Women have been conditioned to see each other as threats. And therefore we hold that information close to our vests and we don't share it. And that is actually working against all of us. So when we got together in San Francisco, right, we had a room of 20 women, and it was this intersectional mix of women who were established in their careers, who were, you know, C-suite at a corporate company. It was women who were elevating in their careers. They were mid to senior level at small, medium, and large businesses. And it was entrepreneurs, female founders, and small business owners. And when you bring that mix of women together, they can do business together. We can start to either hire each other directly or make connections for an indirect wealth building opportunity. And we have to be each other's hype women. Like, here's something that I loved so much with the DC dinner. Last night, the CEO and president of the Institute for Women's Policy and Research, Nicole Mason, she was at our dinner in DC 3 weeks ago. She had this amazing event happening. 6 of the women from the Fairway dinner showed up.
Wow.
Right. And they were there to hype her, right? To like support her, to be with each other again. So we've got to just keep creating these spaces where we are surrounding each other in times of both celebration, but also being there in times of failure, which are necessary for growth. And men do it. They do it all the time. They have the time and the space. Remember, golf is like an 8-hour endeavor. That is insane. When have you, on a regular basis, done something with your girlfriends for 8 hours repeatedly?
We don't get time for that. 1 hour, and by then you will have 10 different 10
different texts and phone calls about, like, from work and from home, about how to like function. But also, we've had the wool I always say this wrong. I'm like, is it the wool pulled over our eyes, the rug pulled out from under us, whatever it is? It's like we've got the wool in the rug. Yeah. We're completely right. Corporate America has really bought into this idea that that golf is also a professional activity. And so so many of these men, it's paid for by the corporation, and they do it on the company's time. I mean, it's an incredible trick, right? Incredible. And so
and millions of dollars deals happen there.
millions of dollars of deals. So again, right? I don't have my frustration is not with the game of golf. Okay. My frustration is not with straight white men. My frustration is with a system that is exclusive and that does not allow those of us who are a part of a historically excluded group to participate and to benefit from it. So that is my problem with the premise of golf, is that if you are not a straight white man, you are unlikely to be invited. And if you dare to show up, you sure as hell aren't going to be included.
You know, it's in America, it is golf, but in other parts of the world, it could be something else. For example, in India, I would say it's more about the evening drinking at the bars or maybe other social networks, you know. So I do 100% agree that there aren't many safe spaces for women to network as well as obtain these access to resource what you're talking about. That way,
that's right.
I'm sure Ella should grow across the globe, not just limited to US.
Oh yes, absolutely. And the desire for it to be global has been communicated. And so we're launching on December 1st our app and our membership that is going to allow this to happen in more places, because what I never ever want to be is a hindrance to the impact that women can have on one another by me having to physically be in these places. It was a lot over the course of 8 weeks to be in 5 different major markets and 6 cities with a 4 and a 6-year-old at home, right? That was a lot for me to do, but I knew I needed to do it. I knew I needed to be in these rooms to make sure that we saw what this was, and the results have been absolutely astonishing.
Exactly. Now, for the audience, they don't know what is the activity that you are doing. Probably you should explain the fairway dinner.
Yeah,
I haven't done
it. So, yes, absolutely. So the fairway dinners, what we've done is we've created, again, these spaces, much like men are playing on the fairway when they're playing golf. We are creating our own fairway where we are having these conversations, giving each other access to opportunities, sharing our experiences and our networks with one another, with the entire premise to be that we are recognizing one another's value and we're increasing our valuation. Every woman who leaves that room should, at one point or another in the near future, make more money from having those connections in that space, either directly or indirectly. And so what we've seen, so you were a part of this dinner in San Francisco. That was an amazing night. It's 20 women. We did 2 dinners in Chicago, 1 in New York, 1 in LA, 1 in DC, and we ended our series in San Francisco. And it's 20 women that are, spread across those 3 different groups that I talked about earlier, of established, elevating, and entrepreneurs. And when we connect with each other and when we leave, women are hiring each other to do work, and they are making introductions and getting each other into spaces. So what we've seen over the course of 8 weeks at these 6 dinners in 5 markets is, for 120 women, we created access to more than 2,400 connections, more than 100 hours of human capital, more than 75 ungettable meetings, more than 50 job opportunities, and more than $2.5 million in wealth creation. Wow. And so that's what we can do in 8 weeks with 120 women for the first time that they were all physically together. They're going to continue to be together in one-on-one and greater groups. And we're going to start to spread this across the country and world. And what can we do then, right? When we create our own ecosystem where we are doing things in the way that is most natural to us as leaders who believe in community building and empathy and care. Right. Those are the things that we are using as we are going into all of the endeavors that make each of us diverse and powerful.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. And I'm sure this can grow into a global organization in the coming years under your able leadership, which is like super enthusiastic. And I know you're a powerful as well as an energetic person in reality. So
You're
all
so
the best for that. Now, this is my last question for this
yeah.
interview. I know, but very important question, because this question I get asked always as an entrepreneur. People ask me, how do you balance your work life? But I'm going to twist it in a little different way. Yesterday, I had a chat with a Stanford researcher over here. She is actually researching on female founders and the barriers that they face. Okay, so
Mm,
basically, all the kinds of issues that female founders, specifically on tech female founders.
mm.
For example, in the arena of technology, we talk about thousands of startups. However, only less than 1% of women-led startups actually get funded. And we probably can talk about the founder of a Bumble or probably the founder
Mhm.
of Canva. Those are the
Mhm.
big women or other women
Yeah.
who have raised so much kind of funds. The rest of the most of the women founders are struggling to meet their ends and or rather working towards obtaining funds and other things. Now, the researcher, what she is trying to understand is what are the different barriers, and for her surprise, she found two major family related aspects. One is, who do you marry? The spouse. That is very important. The
Yep.
second, the second is about family planning, because most of the time, family planning in terms of what she said is, many founders, they are confused about whether they can balance their business, especially this kind of a tough business, plus a family, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is so they are confused. Many women for that matter wants to start a family, wants to have a child or more children, but that could be the reason they perceive that entrepreneurship is not for me, because if I enter into entrepreneurship, I cannot run a family smoothly. So that
Yeah.
is a deterring factor. Probably that's the reason why women are not entering into entrepreneurship. Now, these two things, what is your take on it? How do you
Yeah.
experience? You have been meeting a lot of women, and what is your experience?
I mean, I think that the researcher is absolutely correct and onto something, because again, the partnership piece of your home, whoever that partner is, it could also be that you are a single parent and your partner is a caregiver that you've hired, like, so whatever the partnership is to raise the child and navigate everything, there has to be an acknowledgement of the ambition
Yeah,
of what you want to do, and that you are going to change, that ambition is going to fluctuate and change over time, and that you have to continue to come to a table with that other person. And even if it's yourself, honestly, sitting across from a mirror, every time you go through a major milestone and meet yourself again, share who you are with that person. This is what I care about now. This is what my priorities are now. I'm not the same person as the person that my husband met when I was a 30-year-old single woman living in a high rise in Chicago.
exactly.
Like, I sure as hell wouldn't have worn this that day, right? I would have had more time to do things like blow dry my hair and like get dressed up. It's like my husband's traveling right now, and I have two kids that I'm dropping off at school. I've got a dog that has like a leg injury that I'm navigating. And so I'm dealing with like way different things on top of running my own company. And so what are the priorities now? What do I care about? You have to continue to meet yourself and communicate what those realities are to whoever is supporting you in your life. And then as far as like, here's the problem that I think many people commit, or the mistake that they commit when they move specifically from corporate to entrepreneurship. They take all of the learnings and the systems and they put it right on top of their entrepreneurial business and experience. And guess what? It's not the same thing. And so much of that stuff actually wasn't working. So 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, like, I think that's just such an archaic model that doesn't acknowledge the differences of roles and what you are bringing to the world, whether it's a product or a service. And so you also have to say, like, at this point in my life, this stage of my life, this season, this is what I have to do. It's not going to look like this in 5 years or maybe even 10, but it looks like this now. So my son gets out of his first grade class at 3:30.
Mhm.
That's just what happens. There's no way around it for us. We're like 200th on a list of like a wait list for the aftercare because like so many people need to use it and can't. And
Right.
so my schedule, I don't allow meetings to be scheduled past 3:15 because I have to go get him or my husband has to go get him and we have to then pick up our other child from a different school. So that's my life. Like
Yeah.
I don't
It's
schedule
not
meetings.
just your life. I would say it's like, 90% of parents' life to balance and work around on this, especially with
And
small kids.
we are absolutely, and we're raised in corporate to lie about what's going on during that time because we pay a penalty, right? So instead it's like, I have a doctor's appointment or I'm blocked because I have a meeting with someone. And like, no,
Exactly.
you want to pick your kid up from school. And so I think when you're an entrepreneur, you have to start to build the company that you've always wanted to work for, but you never have.
Yes.
What does that actually look like? What would be the parameters? What would be the boundaries that you would put in place? Even if you're a solopreneur, as you're thinking about what it would look like to scale and grow your company, you have to start with yourself.
Yeah.
What am I going to show up as? Because that's going to be what other people look to and what I expect of them. And so I think it's so much more about, how you do things, the speed with which you do things, all of those are different for people. And so having a select number of hours over the course of a day is not going to help people do their best work. It's not going to allow them to live a more full life.
Flexibility.
So flexibility. And like what I always say is like the platinum rule is I don't treat you how I want to be treated. I treat you how you want to be treated. And that requires a conversation and an understanding of what you need. And what you need today might be different in 5 years or 10 years, but we're in this moment. And so being honest, creating a space, a psychologically safe space where people can show up as themselves and not be penalized for that is the only way we're going to start to create more innovative companies and innovative solutions in a world that was built not for or by us.
Exactly. I mean, you're talking about the aftercare situation. I always wonder this, that itself is a big billion-dollar opportunity out there. If more women can take up the role of paid caregiving, that actually, enhances and supports other women. And if you take the case of India and other developing countries, women who are unemployed, if they can actually start these kinds of caregiving works, which is currently the unpaid caregiving, I think I was reading a report by UN where they mentioned that goes to trillions of dollars, the unpaid caregiving that women are doing. Imagine if we can actually shift it to a paid caregiving model where that will actually
it's an entire economy.
Yeah, it's another economy. It's called care economy. And at the same time, it also frees up a lot of other women who wants to do something else in their life rather than doing this frustrated job of care.
Well, and I would add on, men need to be doing this caregiving as well. This cannot just be a gendered thing.
Exactly.
Right. And so like, we need more men to see this as a profession that is valuable and that is, guess why men don't do it? Because they're not making money, right?
Exactly.
They are really
currently it is expected that women are into that. But as you rightly said, anybody can do that job. Anybody can do that.
We have to start to as women, we have to start to let things fall through the cracks. Because if we don't, I mean, honestly, like if we don't, then, and I'm not talking about like life-threatening things, but if you're always the one who is purchasing the household items, like guess what people start to pay attention to when there's no more toilet paper or paper towels. So stop showing up and then being a martyr to grit and saying like, I do all this stuff and it's thankless. Well, stop doing it and have someone else needs to step up. So as women in the workplace, in society, in our homes, in our communities, we have got to start letting stuff fall through the cracks if we want people to pay attention. Because right now they are totally benefiting from the passion tax that we pay that says, I'm not going to let this fall down. Well, we're carrying the entire weight of the world on our backs for no money. And we're going to do it into another century.
We have to leave it. I mean, it's okay.
Leave it. You know what?
The moment you leave it, others will recognize, oh, that's not happening. And oh, why didn't you do it? I cannot do it. Or I don't want to do it.
I literally had to put something I had to put something down. That was it. And if you care about it so much, I'm going to need you to pick it up. And so that's literal and metaphorical. So more of that, right? We have to make the invisible visible.
Yeah.
And turn the unpaid to paid. And we have to also think about, again, the socialization, the conditioning of the younger generation that we're bringing up. It makes me insane when I see 2- and 3-year-old little girls pushing baby carriages that were built for their size. And I'm like, they're already doing unpaid labor. Like, why did we make this a fun activity that they're pushing a baby carriage? Why are none of the boys doing that? Like, we bought our boys little baby carriages because we were like, we're going to teach you caregiving from the onset.
Wow.
And we need to make this normalized, that this is not a gendered experience. And also, why are we making that a plaything for kids? Like, let these girls live 20 years before they have to push a fucking carriage, you know?
Correct. I know. This is so frustrating.
Yeah, I'm like, and now we're yelling, which is what happens, but it's fine.
I know we can actually go talking about these for hours, but I need to conclude the episode for today. So, would you like to give one last message to all women out there? What is that one inspiring message that you want to give from your life experience?
Yeah, I mean, really, like, it is this sort of mantra that has come to me this year, specifically in my 40th year, that is, make a commitment to stop abandoning yourself in service to others. And that may come through in your personal, professional, or passion endeavors. But if you are in relationships and in instances and experiences and spaces that force you to abandon yourself in service to them, it's not sustainable, it doesn't value you, and you will begin to disappear. And so you've got to make a different decision.
Perfect. I love it. I mean, we want every woman to be visible, not invisible, right?
Correct.
And
That's
completely
right.
realize her potential. And that's precisely what this magazine also aims at. So thank you so much for your time, as well as your inspiring journey and your enthusiasm, the energy that you have brought into this show, as well as I'm sure your initiative of Ella will impact thousands and millions of women in the coming years. And I'm sure this is going to be massive ahead. Wish you all the very best for all your future dreams. And I'm sure, because your dream is not just your personal dream, it's going to be the dreams of millions of women, and that is needed for the world. Thank you so much once again, and I'll see you very soon, maybe later.
Thank you. And thank you for being one of the originals of our dinners. I can't wait to see where we all go together. And thank you for creating this platform in this space and acknowledging how important it is for women to be visible in the world. Grateful for you.